Welcome everyone to another episode of the Consciousness Road Trip podcast. My name is Sarah Watt, and that voice in the background ewing us on is Mr. Connor J. Hill. Welcome, Connor.
Hello, Mrs. Sarah Watt. I love the name.
Right?
That's fun.
It came to me in the shower, I'm pretty sure. Actually, no, I was getting a massage. You know when you start asking for things?
Right.
And then if you're willing to just ask, I was asking for just new creations to show up in my life, and apparently we're just diving in here, so let's go.
Let's dive. And I mean, you started out with coming to you in a shower and massages, so I think you know where my brain's going.
Right. So I knew I wanted to start creating something new, and I started asking what could that possibly be, and I was getting a massage here in my house in Perugian Beach. It was a happy beginning. And yeah, it popped into my mind to do this podcast, and I was like, and then what would I call it? And because I travel a lot, and I figure I can just pack my little mic in my bag and take it with me, and head out on a consciousness road trip. So
consciousness road trip, I like it.
And sometimes, coming into the podcast, I come up with things to talk about, and sometimes I don't. And this one's definitely a didn't pre-plan, which I think fits you perfectly.
Fine by me.
Yeah,
that works.
You're probably the least planny person that I know, if that's a word.
Yes.
You win that award.
Yes.
And then I think, we're doing a podcast tag team here, because we just recorded a podcast for your podcast, so jump onto Spotify and search for The Recovering Engineer, or where else can they find it? iTunes,
podcast, Spotify, and Google supposedly.
Cool. Yeah. Or just find Connor Hill, on Facebook or something, and harass him that way. He'll love it. And we talked about when your podcast started doing one together, and it's taken us this long because literally you left Australia. We both did back in February of 2019 this year. This podcast might not come out until next year, so this is 2019, the very end. We're nearly at the end, and we both headed off to Global Foundation, I think, or I was going to Global Foundation, you were going somewhere else, which was in February in Houston, and you got home back here in Australia 10 days ago.
Yep. I made a quick stopover in April at some point.
Oh, you did? Was I not home then?
I can't remember.
Well, basically, we've been passing ships in the night. If the night was the whole world.
Hello, bye.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I looked at my phone. I didn't realize Google was tracking me.
Well, so they do that.
I know. And then I realized it because it told me, it was look at your 2019. You've gone around the world 2.9 times. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
And it was you've been in 141 different cities. I was that's that's a new city every 3 days.
Nice.
Holy moly.
Yep.
So, yes, we've passed by at least 2.9 times.
There you go.
Yeah.
And we have seen each other in some places. We crossed paths in the physical sense in Russia, in Costa Rica. So there were places.
Russia, Costa Rica. Baby.
So, boom.
I think also at the ranch.
Yes, definitely. Another one of my favorite places in the world. So, talking about consciousness road trip, I mean, what better person to have talking about this stuff?
Thank you, yeah.
In the year that's been, and what you've been creating with consciousness on this planet.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that, or?
Definitely. I love it because I think the 7-day that was in... Where was the other 7-day this year?
Langkawi, Malaysia.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. That was the rise of the wizards, right?
Yes, the wizards arise.
And maybe I just haven't been on the bandwagon, and the wizards have previously been arising, but it really seems like a year that the wizards and warlocks and witches are rising.
Yeah.
So it's been way too much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I spend a lot of time in my own hotel room.
Yeah.
Uploading recordings and handling business and booking flights and looking at flights and where I'm going next and changing classes and updating classes and looking at where it's going to be and what the time is and all that shit constantly. And it's just fun. I mean, as you know, an access class creates so much space.
Yes.
Yeah, and all of that, I've discovered that like more than 3 days of not facilitating, I've become like somebody that I don't think anybody wants to be around. So I'm like, you might not want to talk to me. I haven't facilitated in 3 days. I'm a grumpy person.
Cool. So for anyone out there listening that doesn't know what the hell we're talking about, access consciousness is something that Connor and I both are quite heavily involved in. We're both facilitators. We both work for what is access consciousness, whatever that is. I used to call it a company. Sometimes I use that word, but it just doesn't really even come close. So
now it's like technically 3 organizations, I believe, or
3 companies, together. It's still weird for me to try and kind of put a word on it. But anyway, you can find out more at accessconsciousness.com. And then I totally lost track of what I was going to say then.
And if it is
unless
a cult,
you want it to be
of sex and bling.
Yes.
And fucking traveling, for fuck's sake.
I know. And
if you really want to travel, you got to start doing access consciousness, because holy moly.
That's what I was going to ask you. You mentioned just then, if you haven't facilitated in 3 days, people might not want to be around you. What is facilitating for you? What is that? What does that look like?
It's just total question.
Yep.
Like, and being totally, to the best of my personal ability at that moment, being totally present.
Yep.
Like with everything that a person has going on.
Yep.
Whether if it's a person, and not just one person, but like an entire class.
Yep.
Of a whole bunch of people. So it's like, and it's just constant change.
Yep.
It's very odd, because from an external point of view, it looks like not a whole lot is going on.
Yeah.
But it's like when you're the facilitator, like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's like, that's, any more words? Yes. It's like, well, actually, probably the best thing I could say is that, I went skydiving yesterday, and it's very fun for me, and there's a lot of space, and it's very fast, and I've been, Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, used to always call me, or still probably does, Mr. Extreme. Mm-hmm. And so, and it really hasn't been until this last year, or like 2 years ago now, Gary was like, Connor, have you ever asked, why do you like to do the extreme sports and all that stuff? And I was like, no, I only asked why did other people not want to do that? He's like, right, that's a great question to ask. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. And so I discovered like how much I made myself wrong for what I liked to do, because I was asking why aren't other people doing it? So the only thing I got from that, this is maybe a little advanced, I don't know.
Yeah, well.
Like, what I got from asking why are other people not doing what I'm doing, all I got in return was like the judgment of either themselves or of me or of it or anything that would actually keep them from doing it or being it. So instead of looking that way, I started actually asking, why do I like it? And really, when I first started doing Access, Gary, like people would ask, Gary, why does someone do extreme sports? And he'd be like, because it gives them a sense of living.
Yep.
And I was like, blah, blah. I'm like, it's like, it's like one of those moments where you hear something and instead of like receiving it, I was fighting it.
Well, and also like they say in Access, the things that you resist the most are generally your ticket.
Yeah.
Or your item.
Yeah, and exactly. So I like just would resist it. I'm like, that's not what it is. It's like, blah, it's like better than that. But I've discovered in asking that question of like, why do I do it? That's exactly why. Is it gives like the extreme sports give me a sense of living when I need, quote unquote, like that really fast driving, like way too much information coming in, so that you can just like let go. Is that it's a sense of living, and actually the whole the road tripping, the traveling, like it's not even gives me that same sense. Instead of something outside of me giving me that sense, I'm actually choosing the living. Yeah.
And would you say then that being a facilitator, in this particular sense of facilitation, being an access consciousness facilitator, because there's a lot of people out there that probably call themselves facilitators, but this is a particular style of facilitation we're talking about, is access consciousness an extreme sport? Like the facilitation side of it, like an extreme sport for you?
For me, it is.
I think it is for me too, because you were just describing why you choose this extreme style of skydiving and all that sort of stuff, because it gives you this sense of living, and that so matches the energy of when you talk about facilitating.
Yeah.
So
it so is, and you know, because even once, it's like, I had to tell Gary, I was like, dude, this year, I'm finally starting to get why you called me Mr. Extreme all the time.
Yep.
Like, because other people are having classes and it's like really easy, and plenty of people are showing up, and it's like all really easy, and they're like, oh, it's so easy, and I'm like, mine is fucking extreme. Like, I was at a conscious rider class in Brazil, and while I'm just about to start working on a horse, and while I'm working on the horse, I like just noticed something out of the corner, like I just sensed something in the distance, and there's this girl that's like crying, like a young girl, like 11 years old, that's in my class, and like 3 people around her, like freaking out. I'm like, somebody hold the horse, I gotta go over there. She's having an asthma attack, and she forgot her inhaler. Her and her mom both forgot her inhaler. The inhaler's closest distance is like an hour and a half away, and I was like, oh shit. So I'm like, wow. But the fun part is, you know, I mean, to me, like this whole extreme living per se is like consciousness only hands you what you can handle. So even in like these like freaky ass situations that I apparently really enjoy putting myself in, it's like, because I've actually been looking at this a lot recently, like, like these situations I've been putting myself in to sort of like quote unquote force myself to be that sense of living. And so really more so I've just been asking to be it all the time, even if I haven't facilitated in 3 days. So and I mean, I know you're like slightly extreme, or like ridiculously extreme, which is probably why we live together, kind of.
When we're home, when we're not passing in the night like 2 ships.
And so it's just acknowledging that choice, and I've recently really been asking the question, like it's like, wow, am I creating these situations to prove to myself that I know I can handle it? There's kind of a yes, but then there really is just this like acknowledgement of okay, I enjoy it, and I don't have to like make it wrong or anything like that. But really like asking what would it be like to have that sense of living always. Where at the same time, I mean, maybe, and this is just me probably maybe even thinking too much. I do like to mentally masturbate, or actually being aware of a lot of things, whatever. It's like the thing that we talked about on our podcast is, the podcast that you were on, like you said, when you said, no, there has to be something different, like that was going on with all the dogs. It's like I do, if I'm at a home, I get lackadaisical. Somewhat, and I get into the world of everybody else around. And I just know that I got to get back out there. And so there's also this looking at, okay, am I creating all of this because so it doesn't really, you know, I'm looking at it just like maybe none of it matters, but just acknowledging, okay, I do like the extreme, and that also enables me to really go to countries and do things that other people might not want to do.
Well, there's definitely like 2 things that came up there. Number one was, you know, Gary calling you Mr. Extreme and talking about you being into extreme sports. Like in this reality, or, you know, even myself not long ago would have been like, well, that must be a wrongness. It must be something I need to change. But when you're willing to acknowledge where you function from, then you can really start looking at like the places that you can and do use it to your advantage, and the places that maybe you don't create so much ease around it. And also, like, so there's that part of it where it's like, hey, this is how I function in the world. you know, this is sometimes what shows up. But then you can really start drilling into it a bit and looking at changing parts you want to change, not changing parts you don't want to change. But I see so many people walking around in the world never willing to look at where they function from and to use it to their advantage.
In general, and look at where it's not working to their advantage per se.
And where it is, and just this thing of being really kind of almost brutally honest with yourself about who you are, and and using all of those. You know, like another thing they say in Access is, what if everything that you think is a wrongness is actually a strongness?
Yeah.
And if for you, if when he was saying to you this stuff about the extremeness and Mr. Extreme, if you bought that as a wrongness, you would never be able to take it and use it to change the world, which is what you've done, which was the second thing that really came up when you were talking then, was how the style of facilitation and the way you live life has such an element of tenacity to it. Like there's this never give up attitude where, you know, half the time I don't know where the fuck you are or what you're doing. I don't think anyone does. Someone asks me like, oh, is Connor and I'm like, you're asking me? I don't think that boy even knows what the fuck he is or where he's. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this place where you've so embraced you and where you function from, and you've really grabbed it and run with it, and that I see creating so much change in the world. Like I see you facilitate and choose what you choose in a way. You're you, like you're one of those, and I mean I know a fucking lot of cool people, and you are one of those people that really has embraced who you are, and you choose from that place.
Cool, thanks. I thank you for that, because as you said, well, and like you said, with this, it's unplanned. It's like I know how I can plan and how planning works for me now, and it's I guess I'd almost go back to like what I was really good at with engineering. Was field work. And so I got really, it's like when you did field work, you couldn't go in expecting anything because it never looked the way you wanted to expect, so you always had to sort of like plan for every possibility and go from there. So it's this like planning sort of a weird thing that is how I go about my travels and sort of living from this where do I need to go, who do I need to be question of what's actually going to create the most, rather than I spent way too much time trying to figure out this is what's going to create what I'd like to create. And rather than just going, all right, what's actually going to create it?
And that really, like, if you've listened to more than one episode of this podcast and done, you know, any Access, or you looked at this, like what true choice is as well, and where, because, you know, we grow up, I guess, as very young'uns in this world, we kind of get this yes-no universe of like, I want this, I don't want this, and then it sort of starts to get beaten out of us a bit, like where you can't, you know, choice is X, Y, or Z. Choice is maybe A, B, C, and D. Like you might have a maximum of 4 things to choose from, and that's what we start to believe choice is. But like also what you were saying just now, to me, is a really great example of starting to play with what true choice is, where you're willing to go for something and almost like see what happens because it matches something, but you're not. And even the field work you were talking about in engineering, like there's an element there where you've got to have choice available to you, because it's never going to be like this plus this equals this, which we know in life is not really true.
Exactly.
Like we try to tell ourselves it's true, but
like, it's going to work. I swear it worked.
It worked last time I did it.
It did.
Yeah, so it's going to work again.
Everybody else was like, it totally didn't work.
Is it just him seeing this?
Did everybody notice that did not actually work?
So, yeah,
and I mean, you're a conscious source, conscious writer facilitator.
I am.
God, it's like...
Are they the classes you enjoy facilitating the most?
If you guys could see me right now, I'm putting my face in my palms, because it's like, at the end, yes.
Yeah.
And when I say yes, it's like I'm almost even learning what true enjoyment is. Like,
well, true enjoyment is a horse. I mean, hello.
Exactly. Because I'm just like, at the end of it, I have no fucking clue what happened.
Yeah. And how much is it where, like, you're the facilitator, you're the one, you know, that has the team working for you, and you put this stuff together and you put the class out there and you get paid the money, and the horse all the while is like, hey dudes, like, I'm here. And they're just like so much your co-creator and co-facilitator.
Totally.
And I mean, if you're going to talk about an extreme animal, I mean, they're the sort of animal that will change and choose things at the drop of a hat and go with like whatever's going to be required in that moment to create whatever their desired outcome is. I don't know if it's extreme in horses, but there's definitely a match of energy there.
It's extremely extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, at the Conscious Horse or Conscious Rider Facilitator training in 2016, the very first thing Gary said was, this is extreme creation.
There you go.
This is extreme creation. And I saw, and it's like, I've gotten every class. It's like, it's the most fun in that literally I can't plan anything.
Yeah.
Like, a normal class, I get to sit in a chair and the people are sitting in front of me.
Yeah.
Woohoo! It's like this class, it's like, because people can get stupid real fast.
Mm-hmm. And horses like, don't really suffer stupidity, right?
Right. It's like
they kind of like
they might. It's like people think horses are dangerous. No, they're not dangerous.
They just don't like stupid.
They don't like stupid, and if you're stupid, and it's like. I've never had anything quote unquote bad happen in a class.
Yeah.
But I did have a lady put her thumb in a horse's mouth and the horse thought it was a carrot.
And they got big teeth.
And they got big teeth and strong mouths. And the horse locked on and she started crying. She was like, oh my God, with my thumb. And it was messed her thumb up pretty good. I mean, she got a lot of awareness from it, but it's just like, and I mean, you know the tools of like, who does this belong to? But like everybody that shows up to your class, my classes at least, is like freaked out.
Yeah.
Like there's at least one freaked out person.
Yeah.
And then there's people that like say they're not freaked out, but they're totally fucking freaked out.
Yeah.
And so it's an extremely extreme and intense class.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much energy and the horses, a lot of times they have so much to give, but then sometimes you just like I never know going in if it's going to be a class about the people and the horses are healing the people, or it's going to be a class about the horses and the people are healing the horses.
Yeah.
And then you walk in and like the horses don't seem to be desiring to work with the people. They don't have anything physically wrong. So I'm like, okay, horses aren't healing the people. There's not a whole lot we can do as far as like this. I mean, like we can run some body processes on them and that's going to be cool. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck do we do now?
Yep.
And the last class I did, that was one of the things that showed up. I was like, okay, what do we do now? And then years ago I learned in just one session with like Dane where he's like, okay, we're doing like an ESC, energetic synthesis of communion, and we get to this weird space of like it seems you can't feel anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, is this the sense of true choice? And it's like, holy shit, it is. Where you talked about when we're kids and we have like choices and we think choices like I get to choose this, that, or the other thing. What happens when you get to fucking choose everything?
Yep.
Like total infinite choice. And there's literally like I don't even have options.
Yeah.
And that actually showed up in my most recent Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class, and I was like, whoa, so now how do I choose?
Cool.
And so I chose from a different space. So that's why it's like it's the most fun class in that sense, and it's also the most intense, most extreme. It's the most facilitating Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class is the most extreme thing I've ever done yet, because the next one I do will probably also be the next most extreme thing I've ever done yet.
Right.
Yes.
Cool. So for those listening again, Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider is one of the specialty classes of Access Consciousness. And basically people can find a Conscious Horse, Conscious Rider class or facilitator and attend without having done any access before, right?
Correct.
Yeah, there's some intro classes out there. So you can go to conscioushorse.consciousrider.com. They're on Instagram. They're on the Access Consciousness website. I mean, you know, I'm totally biased because I'm a horse lover, but they're definitely one of my favorite classes.
Yeah.
So where to next, Connor?
Next is Turkey.
Nice.
Turkey. It's actually interesting because I've been doing a lot of conscious source, conscious writer classes, and now everybody's like, yeah, I want to do a conscious source, conscious writer. And I'm like, I'm not doing one until it's weather
yes,
permitting.
Because in Europe it's very cold.
It's cold in Europe. It's hot. It's hot, cold in the north, hot in the south.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like it's a whole nother element doing those classes because sometimes venues don't have bathrooms, sometimes they don't have roofs, and some, like, you know, I showed up to a venue this year in Greece, and it wasn't even like a real horse place. Like, we were at a cafe and we just had the horses outside. They're like, "This is great, right?" I was like, "How did I not see this in the pictures?" I was like, "How did I let this happen?" So,
well, what did you become aware of?
Exactly. So it's a very intense class, and I highly suggest it for anyone.
Yes.
Just going to the class, because everybody always walks away just like blown away at how amazed they are with everything that they got. So, like you said, I don't really have to do anything, but I feel like I have to do a lot. So next is Turkey, and we'll see. We go on to, I think I'll be a global foundation. I'll be a global foundation for Brazil, Sao Paulo. Are you gonna be there?
Oh yeah.
All right. We'll have to record another one.
I wouldn't miss a Brazil party. I'm a bit of a fan of the Latin American parts at the moment.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. It's very fun for me.
And then a lot of Russia. I've been doing Russia for about a month. Even the weird corner, like over near Alaska almost. It's actually the same time zone as Brizzy.
Wow, really?
Same time zone as where we're at right now.
There Russia. You go.
Yeah.
The world and time. It's just crazy.
It's just wild.
So can people find you online? Do you have a website? Or
ConnorJHill.com.
There you go.
CONNOR
J-Hill.
J
Love it.
H-I-L-L.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. This has been another amazing podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to being a ship and passing you in the night sometime again soon.
Fully agree. Fully agree.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.